So what about boundaries then? Talk to us about that. We've all heard the word, but how we enforce them is another thing altogether.
Well, there are two at the end of the day, parenting comes down to two things, and that is showing love and setting boundaries. Parenting sort of experts tend to call it warmth and firmness. You've got to show warmth and firmness, and most of us are better at one or the other, but actually all of us need to show both. And we've talked about the warmth, the unconditional love, but children also need boundaries for their security. And I remember somebody describing boundaries for a child like walking across a rope bridge, across a gorge, and the boundaries are like the handrail. And it's seriously scary if you think of walking over a bridge without any handrails. And this is what children feel. The boundaries for their behaviour are like those handrails. And typically, children push to see where the boundaries are. And actually, then when they discover, oh, there's a boundary, i.e. mummy or daddy or whoever it is says, no, I can't do this, typically they will carry on pushing to see, is this boundary firm? Is it going to be enforced? And firm boundaries which are firmly enforced, don't mean harshly. Harsh is different to firmness. But boundaries which are enforced, this is what you need to do. If you don't do that, then there are some sort of consequences. These make a child feel secure. And in that sense, boundaries are something, we don't do it to our children as much as do it for them, for their security.
And actually, the early years are the really key ones. I would say, sort of up to 6 is really key, because once they know that when we put a boundary in place, we mean that boundary is real and we'll enforce it, they get that. They learn fast. Now, obviously, some children are more strong-willed than others, and they push for a lot longer, and they go on.
And we have a child who's much more strong-willed than the other, and that was really helpful experience.
Yeah. But basically, those early years are the time to really put in good boundaries, and then they get it.
And it is the consistency. And it's a really hard part of parenting. I think consistently putting in these boundaries firmly. Not, as I say, not harshly, but consistently, as Sila says, children then get it.
And finally then, Sila, how about teaching healthy relationships to our children? And particularly, I just wanted to add on this one, perhaps if you're aware yourself that you've not had particularly healthy model and or you don't have a healthy situation. So how can I possibly model this to my child? How important is that, and how can we do that?
I think it's very, very important. And I would want to encourage anybody who knows that they haven't had a good model. Actually, there are wonderful models out there. And I mean, certainly that's where we learnt a lot about parenting. Actually, Nicky and I were both very blessed to have good models as families.
From our own
upbringing. But still, we learn masses from looking at other families and other couples and how they worked. And I would encourage everybody to find those couples that they know, those families that they just watch and observe and see how they do it. That's a very important and helpful way in which we can learn how to do it. I think in terms of being healthy, that there are 2 areas that, and we touched on the course. One is learning to communicate well with our children, and particularly the listening. And the second is managing and handling anger in an appropriate way. Now, of course, both of those come back to us as the parent. Yes. And I have to say, I found both of those incredibly challenging. I didn't grow up with a very healthy model of how to handle anger. There were lots of stomping and shouting and banging of doors in our family. So I had to learn how to handle anger well first before I could model it for our children. And secondly, the communication. I wasn't good at listening. And Nicky is very good at listening. And I learnt a lot from watching how Nicky listened to our children and what a positive outcome that is with the relationship.
It is also, of course, children copy what they see. And if we are parenting as a couple, then our relationship between us as a couple is incredibly important. And that's why if parents come as a couple on the parenting children course or the parenting teenagers course, we always say to them, do the marriage course. This will be one of the best things that you do for your children, is invest in your own relationship. Work out how to handle anger, how to express apology and forgiveness. Because as you practice these things, your children are watching, they'll see. And those who are parenting on their own, of course, it's their relationship with, whether it's wider family, whether it's with friends. Again, it's these relationships that our children are watching. And this is what they learn from, most of all, watching how we do it.
For more interviews, music and debate, listen to Premier Drive with me, Loretta Andrews, Monday to Thursday from 3 p.m. on Premier Christian Radio, where faith comes to life.